I think my metabolism is broken. It's one of those common things that my clients tell me, and I understand why. Here's the truth. It's not broken. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Studies show that metabolism could slow 200 to 500 calories per day during prolonged calorie restrictions.
If you don't know me yet, I'm Robin Thomas, founder of Living Well Connections, a healthy living community that supports, educates, and empowers us all to make healthy decisions toward a more balanced and fulfilling life. I have a background in medical research, and I love exploring the interplay of our physical, mental, and spiritual selves.
Irina Plakas helps adults over 40 reclaim their energy and confidence. As a former pharmacist turned health coach, she cuts through the noise on hormones, metabolism, and weight loss using science-based strategies that actually work so you can feel like yourself again.
Irina, I'm so happy to have you join me here on the podcast. I'd love collaborating with you. And I'm very interested in our conversation all about perimenopause.
Thank you, Robin. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you. I think that there's a lot of women out there that need to know.
Absolutely. We can be fabulous even through this part of our lives. It doesn't matter where you are. It's what you're doing to feel better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Empowerment, strength, and just having the knowledge to move forward.
Yeah. A lot of people come to me and they ask about perimenopause and tips and hints on how to help, but they kind of feel like their metabolism has suddenly broken. We talked a little bit about that. Can you tell us more about, your metabolism isn't broken?
Yes, absolutely. So how many of you have said or heard someone say, I think my metabolism is broken? It's one of those common things that my clients tell me, and I understand why. They've dieted for years, they're eating less, they're another diet, restricting their calories, and nothing's moving. And they feel broken. They go to the doctors, and the doctors say, well, just lose the weight. But here's the truth. It's not broken. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the science. Your metabolism is adaptive. It's in a survival mode. It's not a calculator. So when you eat less, you restrict the calories, your body adapts. It knows the signals, and it responds to slower metabolism rate, reducing non-exercise movement, fidgeting, posture, walking, and lowering your thyroid output, and dropping hormones like leptin. This is called metabolic adaptation, sometimes called adaptive thermogenesis. Studies show that metabolism could slow 200 to 500 calories per day during prolonged calorie restrictions. The longer and more extreme restriction, the deeper the adaptation. So when diets stop, you gain the weight right back because you go back to eating. So what I like to tell people is, if you're going to increase the calories or you're going to increase your intake, do it gradually. Or if you're going to decrease the calories, do it gradually, so your body adapts slower. Okay. It's a chronic yo-yo dieting that even worsens it. Each cycle tends to leave people with less muscle and more dependent. Low muscle mass, lower resistance, harder to lose weight each time. So what does actually work? What can you do about it? Eating more. I know people tell you eat less, do this diet, but actually eating more, giving your body the nutrients that it really needs, especially protein, to preserve muscle mass. Resistance training. Whether you've been doing it or not, it's time to start resistance training, building that muscle, and that helps protect the tissues. Reverse dieting for chronic dieters. Like I said earlier, slowly increasing the calories and rebuild the metabolic capacity before cutting again.
So none of this up and down.
Right, not
crazy
slow.
roller coaster.
It's nice and slow. The goal isn't to eat as little as possible and restrict the calories. The goal is to eat as much as you can while you're still moving toward your health goals. That's a completely different mindset, and it's the one your body actually responds to.
And that's if you're making sure you're adding protein.
That's correct.
Yes, yes, and moving your body. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that because your body tends to, if somebody goes on a crash diet, say they want to lose weight for their daughter's wedding, that kind of thing. You know, they wait until just a couple of weeks before, and then they're going to lose weight quickly. They're going to gain that right back. Aren't they?
As soon as they stop the diet. And that's why most diets don't work, because it's calorie restrictions. They're extreme.
I always hate the word diet. It has the word die in it, but it also is just, it just automatically means you're going to stop this. It's a temporary thing.
Yeah, it's, well, you know, the diet to me is like you're running on willpower. Once the willpower ends and then you stop the diet, it just all comes back. And then you try another diet and they don't work. And that's why I recommend eating more protein, eating the more foods. And we'll get into that more as we go through this and have this conversation. But I know it's hard to think about eating more food. But when you start eating more protein, your body will respond and you won't be hungry for your snacking.
And you'll have more energy to
Absolutely.
be able to move your body more.
Absolutely.
Great. So you say that perimenopause isn't the problem. Ignoring it is.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
it could start as early as in the 30s. Most women start in the 40s, but there are some that start earlier. And nobody's told that. Nobody knows what's going on. By the time symptoms show up, the weight gain around the middle, the sleep issues, the mood swings, the brain fog, they've been told it's stress, depression, or just getting older. How many of you heard that? You know, going to the doctors, complaining about your symptoms. The doctor says, oh, it's part of aging, or you must be depressed or stressed. But there's a hormone story there. And once you're heard and understood, it starts to click in place. So let's talk about it. It's a transition, often lasting 7 to 10 years before the actual menopause starts. And I like to educate my 40-year-old friends and clients that you should start getting ready for menopause. The earlier you prepare, the better the symptoms are. So the hormones are fluctuating and decline, especially estrogen and progesterone. They affect sleep, mood, metabolism, insulin sensitivity, bone density, cardiovascular health, and brain function. Estrogen is actually protective. Its decline changes how your body handles everything. So here are some symptoms. Let's talk about those. And you may be experiencing them. Weight gain, especially visceral fat around the belly, linking to declining estrogen and worsening insulin sensitivity. Sleep disruption. Progesterone is calming and sleep promoting. When it drops, sleep suffers. Mood changes. Estrogen modulates serotonin and dopamine. Brain fog. Estrogen supports neuroplasticity and cognitive function. So sometimes you're forgetful, or you're like, why did I go in the kitchen? What was I going to get? Or let me check my notes. What did I write down? Where did I write it down? These are common symptoms. Joint pain. You start feeling hip, elbow, shoulder. This has to do with estrogen. It's anti-inflammatory properties. Increased anxiety, especially the luteal phase of their regular cycles. So a lot of times you hear eat less, exercise more, lose the weight. And how do women do it? Nobody takes the time to explain to you these things. So let's talk about it. The metabolic environment is fundamentally different. Insulin resistance increases, meaning carbohydrates are handled differently. Cortisol sensitivity increases, stress hits harder, muscle loss accelerates because estrogen supports muscle protein synthesis. The old playbook doesn't work anymore. because your hormones are changing. So what can you do about it? What tools do you have? Well, knowledge, knowing what to do about it is the first thing, and understanding what your symptoms are, right? Like if you're going through the symptoms and experiencing, these are some of the things. I recommend high protein intake, 0.8 to 1 pound per body weight to preserve muscle mass. So if you want to be 120 pounds, that's your ideal weight, you should be eating between 100 and 120 grams of protein per day. And I like to divide that into 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it could be 40 grams per meal, or it could be 50 grams per meal, and then 20 at night, depending on how much weight do you want to actually weigh, your ideal weight. Okay. The second thing is strength training, as we talked before. That is non-negotiable. The most impact in a single intervention. Pick up the weights, either at home, at the gym, start building muscle. Sleep prioritization, also not a luxury. This is very, very crucial. Prioritizing your sleep, making sure you're following the circadian rhythm, making sure you're going to sleep and getting 7 to 8 hours of good rest, and tracking it. Are you waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom? Or are you thinking that you need to go to the bathroom, that you're waking up? Blood sugar management, reducing those refined carbs, eating in balanced meals, and hormone support interventions. That, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor or your GYN about that if you can't manage the symptoms. Stress management. Cortisol and estrogen are directly implicated here. Find techniques like breath work, meditation, stretching, just being grateful. I call it practicing vitamin G. Being grateful for the things in your life. Yeah.
Yes.
When you have love in your heart, you can't be stressed at the same time. So, the women I work with who turn things around in menopause aren't the ones who are trying harder with the old approach. They're the ones who stop fighting their biology and start working with their hormones that actually they need right now.
It sounds like, well, first of all, the first thing that came on my mind is our control center is going. Estrogen is so much of a part of our lives as women. And when it's declining, it's like, and you're right, it definitely controls a lot of different functions in our body. But I was wondering, I had a question for you. As far as eating protein during the day, and you said it maybe a little lighter in the evening. What is your reasoning for the lighter in the evening?
So if you eat less in the evening, you're not moving as much. You're not as active in the evening. So if you're a person that goes to the gym after dinner, then yeah, you could have your 40 grams, 30 grams of protein. But most people go to the gym or exercise or move during the day. And then in the body, so once you have dinner, your body is kind of slowed down. Your metabolism starts to slow down. And that weight is where you see it in the midsection. It could start, we're women there. We need to protect our bellies because we're made for birthing, for having babies. So our body's going to protect our bellies for that. It's just automatic. So I prefer to have more protein for breakfast and more protein and bigger meals throughout the day, and then keep the smaller one at night.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering if it had anything to do with sleep.
Well, that's a separate issue, yeah. And I like to eat my last meal 3 hours before bedtime to make sure at minimum. So you can digest your food and then you could have a better sleep. Absolutely.
All right. Wonderful. I agree with that. I sometimes have a situation with my husband where he'd rather eat later, but I'm like, no, I'm eating now.
Yeah. And also you have more time for for fasting, right?
Yeah.
So if you dinner at 6 and you don't eat breakfast till 9 o'clock, you have all that time. Your body's fasting, it's resting, and you don't have the peaks, the insulin and the glucose spikes. Your body's at a plateau as far as insulin resistance and glucose. You're not going up and down and trying to digest the foods.
That makes perfect sense. So, do you have any more hints and tips?
Yeah, I'd like to also talk about stress. I think that it's very important topic, and a lot of women during menopause that are experiencing these symptoms feel that, so stressful about it, and they go to the doctors, and the doctors are quick to think about, are they crazy or are they depressed? Do they need an antidepressant? And being a pharmacist, I've seen that all the time. They're put on SSRIs, and meanwhile, they have legitimate symptoms. So let's talk about that, and especially how it affects the weight loss. You can have the perfect meal. You could hit the gym 4 times a week. And if your stress is high, then nothing's going to happen. In many cases, you might even gain the weight. Stress is a variable almost nobody accounts for, and that's probably the most powerful one in the room. Let's talk about cortisol. Cortisol, I call it the stress hormone. So you could think of it as that. It's the primary stress hormone released by the adrenal glands in response to the perceived threat, physical, emotional, and psychological. Short-term cortisol is fine. It's adaptive. But chronic cortisol levels is where the problem starts. So what happens when cortisol spikes? Your insulin spikes. Cortisol raises blood glucose to fuel the fight or flight response. Your pancreas responds with insulin. Do this repeatedly and you drive insulin resistance and fat storage, especially visceral fat. You could have it around your organs, and most women in menopause will see it around their waist area. When the jeans don't close anymore, Also, it tanks your sleep. So when I talked earlier about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going to the bathroom, that's usually cortisol. That's cortisol and melatonin are related. They're like cousins. High cortisol at night means poor sleep, poor deep sleep, and early waking. The poor sleep rises cortisol the next day. It's a cycle. It also hijacks your hunger hormones. Cortisol raises ghrelin, the hunger, and suppresses leptin. You become hungrier, less satisfied by food, and more likely to crave high calorie, high carb foods because your brain is in survival mode. It also breaks down your muscle. Cortisol is catabolic. Chronically elevated cortisol eats muscle tissue, which tanks your metabolism. It also suppresses thyroid function. So a lot of people that you hear, they have hypo or hyperthyroidism because of cortisol levels. So why exercise alone doesn't fix this? Because high exercises, like high intensity, it's a cortisol stressor, increases the cortisol levels. So if you're doing stressful exercises, you could be spiking your cortisol levels and nothing's really happening. This is why some clients exercise constantly and still gain weight. They're adding psychological stress to an overloaded system. So I recommend low intensity movements, walking, strength training, yoga. It often produces the better fat burning loss and less cortisol load. The perimenopausal is like a double hit. Estrogen declines, cortisol increases, and the same stressor produces a bigger cortisol response. That's why stress management becomes even more critical for midlife, not less. So let's talk about what helps with the stress to keep your cortisol levels down. Sleep, good sleep hygiene. The single highest leverage for cortisol intervention. I recommend 7 to 9 hours. Protect it aggressively. No No going out till 1 o'clock in the morning. Sleep. Sleep is your one thing that you could really, really control. Like we said, not eating right before bed, not snacking, turning off the lights, getting ready for the sleep. No phone by your bed, no blue light, turning the TV off, just thinking about it, being in a dark environment starts telling your brain it's time to produce melatonin, your own natural melatonin, and start getting ready for bed. Protein for breakfast. We talked about that, maybe 30, 40 grams of protein. It stabilizes blood sugar, reduces cortisol spikes, and then helps you fast overnight. And then most importantly is the morning light exposure, going outside to start your circadian rhythm, to reset it. It's telling stop, shut down the melatonin levels, wake up, telling your body, right? Boundaries on workload and screen time. We talked about that. And especially work, we could be overworked, feeling the stress. Take breaks throughout the day. Do some breath work. Meditate. Take your vitamin G every day. And some of the things that I like to incorporate when these natural habits, sleep habits don't work, ashwagandha is really good for cortisol reduction. Taking like 1 or 2 capsules before bedtime really helps to calm the body down and lower the cortisol levels. And also magnesium glycinate. It supports sleep, and most women are very low in magnesium anyway. So just taking the right kind, which is glycinate, it helps to calm your body and decrease the cortisol levels.
That's all great information. And I you're putting it all together in such a nice way here in the podcast. I've actually knew all those tips, but putting it all together and why. And I mean, I like to find out why is this happening? Not just you need to take care of your sleep. I mean, people know you need to sleep, but really it makes a whole difference in the whole biochemistry of our body.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put it all together, it's kind of like the whole package, right? Sometimes we think about it like, oh, the diet, or the sleep, or the stress, or the symptoms. But when you look at it as a whole and focus on everything, and that will protect your body and help you manage those symptoms by cutting out the high carbohydrates and just having a little bit less carbohydrates. And the same thing with stress, controlling the stress in your life. I know we can't control all the stressors, but we could, use techniques that work with ourselves that we know that are like breath work or meditation, or even, just simple as vitamin G, what we're grateful for. Write down maybe 3 tips and then you start feeling love. Like, I'm so grateful for you, Robin, for today, for allowing me to come on your podcast and share my 30 years in healthcare with you and your audience.
Well, I appreciate you so much too. And what I like what you're talking about is not immediate diet, not changing fast, but gradually changing into a lifestyle that becomes natural to us. In living it, and don't beat yourself up if one of these 5 options, one of these 5 things that we've talked about, if you're struggling with one, well, don't beat yourself up on that. Just know that we're all a progress. I mean, we're all just going through it progressively. We're all getting fabulous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I say do one thing at a time. Don't change it all. Maybe just at 8 o'clock, turn the TV off. Yeah. And meditate for half an hour, or think about all the things you enjoy, and start brushing your teeth, put some cream on your face, just do your sleep hygiene, stretching, and get ready for bed. And then it takes about 90 days to see a difference in their circadian rhythm reset. Yeah. So don't expect immediate results. Just because it's not showing up in your life doesn't mean it's not working.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me at my Over 40 and Fabulous podcast. If this podcast has been helpful for you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with those in your life who need to hear this empowering message. And don't forget to download my free gift, 5 Ways to Get Started with Healthy Habits Without Getting Overwhelmed. This free guide leads you through 5 small steps that will allow you to ease into healthy habits until they become a natural part of your life. It's wonderful if you're just not quite sure how to get started. To get this helpful guide, go to robinthomas.biz/community support, and I will put it in the show notes too. Drop in your email and it will arrive straight to your inbox. Bye for now, and I'll see you next